I live in the beautiful city of Lyon in France. I'll try and keep this story brief but detailed at the same time. I swear that what happened is 100% true. I have no way to prove it and all I can give you is my word. But please, whether you take this tale with a pinch of salt or go out and investigate for yourself, please be careful next time you pass by an old Gothic church or cathedral because I still can't be sure if this is what caused it. To start this story, you have to go back to the start of 2018 and the bitter cold nights of January. I worked the night shift at a medical lab in the city, conducting research on a plethora of ailments and diseases, but I only work 3 nights per week. Because of this, and because I have zero responsibility and the fact that my only friends also work nights, it means that on my 4 days, or should I say nights, off, I find myself usually going into the city centre to keep myself occupied. This particular night, it was bitterly cold and I had just left this niche underground techno club that operated in some abandoned tunnels underground. It was about 4 AM and I was alone, having come into town alone too after deciding I didn't want to go to the club my friends were going to. It was very quiet as I passed the old church that was about halfway between the club and my apartment. It was a creepy old church, very historic, built sometime in the 12th century, believe it or not, and it sat out of place amongst the miasma of modern engineering. It wasn't a large church either, only small, shadowed in size by some of the surrounding buildings. The church was, in its own way at least, beautiful, and was built in the Gothic style. Despite its beauty, since it was on the outskirts of the city and was off the tourist trails, with many visitors preferring to go to the older part of Lyon and visit the cathedral and other historical landmarks, the church was little known and not very popular. The stonework and details of the building had been worn down over the centuries and the place looked almost decrepit. However, as I'm aware, it is still in use today. The corners of the curious church were decorated with immensely detailed ornate gargoyles, each with water spouts in their oral area. Their faces were weathered and eroded and now appeared empty husks of how I imagine they once looked. The eye sockets were smooth and empty, their horns had been whittled down into spire-like protrusions and their mischievous grins had now worn down to the look of decayed and demonic laughs. Ever since a child, those things had creeped me out, and up until this point, before anything had even happened, they still did. In the cold darkness of early morning, I kept my head down and quickened my pace as I passed the building. Like I say, it was a beautiful structure, but something always made me shudder, as if something about the place wasn't quite right. I had just passed the church when I heard the sound of stone on stone scraping, as if some part of the fragile place had just fallen. I turned quickly and scanned the exterior in the poor light. Everything seemed in order to me, although I don't know every exact detail of the place. I turned and continued walking, an ever-present and ever-growing feeling of suppression lingering over me. Then came the sound. It's difficult to describe in words, especially since I'm writing in English and not French. It was an evil sound, there's no doubt about that. But it wasn't deep, or demonic, or raspy, or gritty. It was a high-pitched screech sound that sounded like a bird lingering overhead, waiting for some injured prey to die so it can scavenge the meat off its bones. It had layers to it, as if there was more than one creature or thing making the noise in an evil cacophony of droning sound. I looked up but couldn't make anything out in the blanket of the night. I was unnerved and began to pick up the pace. I didn't want to run. I wanted to stand my ground a bit. Besides, maybe it actually was a bird. I continued walking, and up ahead the road forks off in two, but the angle is quite acute. In the middle is a row of buildings, homes, shops, cafes and the like, and there is a streetlight right on the corner that illuminated up to the roof of the building in a soft glow. There it was, looking down on me like some winged devil. A gargoyle. It was still and unmoving, lifeless, yet I know for a fact that there was never a gargoyle there. Never. I walked this route often and knew the building. I was scared. It looked like it was actually part of the building, which is just so impossible. I started to jog now, terrified at what was happening. Yes, I was a bit drunk, but I hadn't taken any drugs and was lucid the whole time. I jogged the rest of the way back to my apartment and let myself in. I closed and locked the doors behind me and turned on the lights. I was super creeped out but was calming down and suddenly felt claustrophobic in my home. I opened the curtains in my lounge and opened a window. It's worth noting I'm on the 7th floor of 12. I looked across to the building opposite, which is only 10 floors, and nearly passed out as I gazed upon a lone gargoyle sat atop the roof. This one, if not somehow the same one as before, was just as lifeless, yet the eroded pits that substituted as eyes seemed to be staring straight at me. That night, I didn't get much sleep. I had closed my curtains and locked all of my windows and tried to forget about the stone monstrosity, but a plethora of other strange occurrences kept me on edge. Bangs and taps which could be attributed to neighbours, but other weird things. I could hear footsteps in my lounge despite living alone, and I could hear breathing from the darkness of my room. That wasn't all though. The gargoyles, or Gargoyle, began creeping into my life on a daily basis. I'd only ever see it at night, perched atop some building or watching me from a fountain or monument. I would rarely hear the screech, but if I did hear the screech, I would not see the stone beast, even on clear days. Activity in my apartment increased tenfold too. It escalated from bumps in the night to physical manifestations of some horned beast stood at the end of my bed. I woke up late one night to see the shadowy silhouette of a hooved, bipedal creature at the end of my bed. I reached for my light, flicked it on, and it had disappeared. I would see the same half-man, half-beast roaming my lounge in the late hours if I was awake, only for it to vanish almost immediately upon me realising that it was there. I haven't identified what it is yet, but it looks like a classical demon from the biblical text. The top of a man and the bottom half of a beast is uncanny. I also began suffering from night terrors, which had side effects that manifested in the physical world. I would dream of the shadowy demon invading my body, a thick, black plume of smoke entering my orifices. Some of the dreams were wrought with sexual desire. This demonic entity would pose as old exes I'd never thought of and attempt to engage in sexual acts with me. My exes and other female acquaintances would always be disfigured or mutated in some way. The disfigurements varied from piercing red or blue eyes and disproportionate or misplaced body parts to bloody scars, burns, or lacerations. The nightmares reached unbearable levels when I woke one night paralysed. I'd heard of sleep paralysis and thought it may have been that. That was until an invisible force pushed down upon my bed. It was heavy and the bed sunk in, the wooden slats creaking and splitting under the weight. The air was squeezed out of my lungs and I gasped for breath as a low, gritty growl came from the empty air. I felt the sulphuric steam on my face, yet saw no culprit. I was certain I was going to die. I struggled, but it forced my head to the side. I don't know why, but my gaze was drawn to my window, and on my balcony was the gargoyle, just sat on the balcony floor, looking in. The feeling suddenly subsided and my lungs burnt as I inhaled oxygen. I didn't move till dawn, and when I did, the gargoyle had gone. Just disappeared. Activity refused to subside. The gargoyle haunted me wherever I was, whenever it was dark or shadowy. I was beginning to suffer heavily mentally and was always paranoid the gargoyle was somewhere, watching me. I stopped going out with friends, especially at night, because I knew I'd see it somewhere, and I became depressed and introverted. Nights alone weren't much better, each night a new dose of torment. I began waking up with deep scratchings on my back, 3 of them, mocking the Holy Trinity. I considered seeking the help from my local church priest, but honestly, I'm not religious and didn't want to increase the activity rather than make it better. I ended up calling a witch from in the city. Magic is something else I'm a bit dubious about. I've never had any reason to believe it to be valid, but I was more open to that than God. The witch, who I'll refer to as such for her own anonymity, was reluctant to help, claiming the energy was dark and malevolent. That after our first session, which was just a meeting and me showing her around, claimed the demon had followed her home. She claimed this demon wanted me dead. She cast spells and blessed my home and has checked in on me at regular intervals since. She couldn't, or wouldn't, give me the name of the beast that terrorised me, but the activity did begin to subside. It never stopped. I'd still see the gargoyle at nights, emotionless, still, watching, and the bumps and footfalls were still a common occurrence at nights, but I was no longer being attacked, and my nightmares, though still scary, were diminishing in energy. I began to recover socially and felt better about myself and my home life. Over time, only once I was ready, I decided I needed to dip my toe back in. I had to research what had plagued me for the last 5 months. I had always thought the gargoyle was the demon, but traditionally, gargoyles are used to ward off evil. Makes sense. How else would it be able to permanently sit upon holy ground? This makes me think, was the gargoyle trying to protect me? Was it trying to ward off the demonic entity that had plagued me? I don't know, but to me that leaves more questions than answers. I have no idea what it was that was haunting me, and I am thankful for the witch's help. However, over the last few weeks, the activity has begun to escalate again. Does anyone reading or hearing this know what it could be? Am I right in thinking the gargoyle is protecting me? I have sent and submitted this to a number of small blogs, YouTubers, podcasts and other websites. I'm hoping you will be able to get me the exposure I want from real listeners and readers. I'm hoping to get through the oversaturated Reddit boards and through the false and conflicting comments of what to do and get some real answers. Because if the activity becomes as strong as last time, I honestly don't think I'll make it. Any and all comments are welcome. I will be monitoring the sites and shows I have submitted this to. Thank you. Hey guys, Brothers Jackson here. Back to scary stories after the black hole video. I wrote this one myself again. So I've not posted something that I've wrote myself for a while. I wrote this ages ago though, and I've only just got around to narrating it. It's been one that I've kind of sat on. I don't know, I was thinking of doing like a series about it or something, but I've just decided to leave it as a standalone. If you liked it, don't forget to comment, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. Stay tuned for more videos coming in the future. I've got a real mix of stuff coming, like I say, not just scary stories anymore, but I definitely hope you guys all enjoy everything. So thanks again for watching.